Hello, everyone, and the time has come to talk about habits. Happy Tuesday, and I wanted to focus today on habits because they are so critical for goal achievement. And this is the time of year that we want to take advantage of because we're thinking about resolutions, we're thinking about goals, we have a whole year ahead of us. And we really want to focus on the secret to goal achievement, which is actually habits. So, if you look at the results in your life, you can do this as an experiment. It's kind of revealing. You can trace back, usually, and maybe not in every situation, but some goal you've achieved, some outcome you've affected, whether positive or negative, you can trace back to habits, to routines, to things you do kind of automatically over time. What is so incredible about habits is they have a compounding effect. Just like interest in putting into your retirement account. If you do these unfancy actions that nobody knows about, day after day after day, they start to change the direction and build momentum. That's how you achieve. That's how you achieve goals. So I want to talk a little bit about that. First of all, one of the barriers to installing and really focusing on habits is they are very unfancy, first of all. We get very fixated on the goals and the results that we want, and we feel super jazzed about those, but we don't often take the time to look at what does that take. So, for example, you can see I love the example of Trent Shelton, as an example. I was at a business conference, the Rise Business Conference in November, and he spoke. And I don't know, he has a gajillion followers on Instagram. And, these business owners want to know the secret. How do you do that? How do you get that? And it's hard work. It's day after day after day of him showing up on his YouTube channel with no one watching him, basically, one or two or three people. Day after day, it has a compounding effect. So let's look at what one other piece about habits is we tend to measure results and not action. That is what we typically do. So if you have a goal weight you want to be, let's say you're on a diet and you want to lose some weight and you have this goal weight, you're constantly measuring that result. How much do I weigh? And that is a retrospective view. And really, you can't do anything about that, right? When you're looking back at the result, that's just what it is. You can't do anything about that in the present. What you want to measure for goal achievement is what action can I take consistently over time that I'm making a big bet that if I do that, it's going to get me to this goal. So this is a little different than creating a plan, for example, that has different milestones and different steps. This is more, what is a behavior, an action that I can do consistently over time that I'm guessing is going to have an impact on moving me towards that goal. And that's what you measure. It's called a lead measure, not a lagging measure. Goals and results, outcomes, achieving a goal, that's a lag measure. You either achieve it or you don't achieve it. So there's not a lot of room for you to put your own muscle into it. A lead measure is the action that I can measure that I'm taking consistently that I believe will take me to that result. So let me give you an example of this. Many, many years ago in a town far away, no, just kidding. But many years ago in my 20s, I had credit card debt. I had a good amount of credit card debt. I won't go into the details, but I had an uncomfortable amount of credit card debt. And I recognized that it was, not getting me in the direction I wanted to go in. And so I did all sorts of things. I had a budget. I did literally everything. If you Googled what do I need to do to get out of credit card debt, I pretty much did most of those things many years ago. And nothing worked. Literally nothing worked. So I finally, in desperation, made a decision that the only thing I was going to do is every single day I would write down how much I had spent with no judgment. I'm just going to write it down, and that's it. And this was under the theory that the truth will set you free. It's a good theory. So every single day I wrote down a little sheet of paper and I looked at it, and some days I was happy with what I saw, some days I was not so happy, but that didn't matter. All I was measuring was whether I was being honest and conscious of what I had spent. And if I saw, oh, I shouldn't have done that, doesn't matter, next day, like that. And that worked. That worked over time. It wasn't a magic pill, but it worked over time, because as I was measuring, and what I was measuring is, am I doing it every day? That's all I had to do. Not anything about money, not anything about paying down the debt, nothing. Just looking at that. And that had the impact of eventually me getting completely out of debt, having no credit card debt, which I'm happy to, a happy state to be in. Anyhow, so that's an example of a lead measure or a habit that you do consistently over time, that you measure that you do. You say, yes, I did this today, the next day, and that will have an impact on your goals. So what I suggest is you look at one of your goals for the year and figure out, brainstorm, what consistent action can I take over time that I'm making a guess here is going to move me in the direction, move me towards my goals. You want to write a book? Maybe it's that every single day I have to sit down at my desk for 20 minutes. That's what I'm going to measure, and I'm going to check it off that I did it every single day, or every day of the week work, or the work week. So a couple things about adding habits. First of all, patience. Trying to think of how to break this to you. It takes time. And I want to give you a little under the hood here so that you understand why it takes time. And don't sort of self-sabotage because you don't realize it's supposed to take time. So there are these two beautiful parts of your brain that I want to mention in a very layman's terms here. And the first part is that are involved in habit formation. The first part is the prefrontal cortex right here, your little noggin there. So this is the part of the brain, is the most recently developed part of the brain, and it's the executive function. And we use this all day, making decisions, when you're having conscious thought, when you're brainstorming, when you're thinking about things, when you, as I said, all your decisions, when you're exerting willpower, all of that is happening through the prefrontal cortex. And here's the thing about this part of the brain. Of all the parts of the brain, it takes the most effort. It takes the most calories to run. You kind of feel it. And over a day, you will actually, this is called decision fatigue, if you've ever felt that. Over the day, it's almost like a muscle. It'll start to fatigue. So by the end of the day, you've had willpower all day on, your, let's say you're on, I'm using diets. I should probably think of some other examples, but you're on a diet, you've been so good all day, and then at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Or let's say you've been in an exercise routine and you've been doing it, let's say every morning, and then one day you don't do it, and by the end of the day you're like, not doing it. It's partly because this part of the brain has been fatigued. So we want to recognize that that's happening. But this is the effortful part of the brain. So when you start to add a new habit, that's where it's happening. You're making this conscious intention. I am going to write down everything I spent today. I am going to sit down for 20 minutes to work on my book. I am going, whatever. That is all happening in the prefrontal cortex. Takes more calories to run. Now, here's this other really special part of the brain called the basal ganglia, which, if nothing else, how awesome is that name? I mean, really, basal ganglia. So the basal ganglia, one of the things that it does is it's the master pattern seeker. The master pattern seeker. So it's just hanging out under the surface, watching what you do. And all of a sudden it will take note when you start doing something again and again in a pattern. So for example, you might have experienced this. Well, I'll give you the example in a second. So it's watching the pattern, and once it confirms this in fact is a pattern of behavior, it will create a script and will start to run it. And it becomes much, much, much easier to run. So then that's when the effort, you've adopted a new habit. It's not yet a habit. You're working on it. And at a certain point, it becomes automated. It becomes automatic. And that part of the brain runs under the surface. It doesn't it doesn't take as many calories to run, as much energy to run. So it's pretty smooth. You will have experienced this if you've ever, let's say you drive a certain route to work, and it's a Saturday and you're going down that same first part of your route, and you take the turn to go to work when you didn't mean to. That is the basal ganglia getting a little bit involved, getting its wires crossed. It's that script that is just so automatic. I automatically do that. The basal ganglia is at work when, let's say, you've had a power outage in your home and you walk in, it's dark, there ain't no light here. And you walk in the bathroom and flip on the lights. No, because that's what you always do when you walk through that doorway. Flip on the lights. So even though you're not going to get any light, and you would have known that, right? So that is the basal ganglia. So this is the trick of habit formation. You want to move it from the effort that it takes and what is often called activation energy. When you're first deciding to do something consistently over time, it takes what's called activation energy. That prefrontal cortex is working its magic and working hard. And it takes that for a bit of time, and then at a certain point, it will become easier and easier. Here's the deal. Most of us start a habit, and it's hard, and then we give up because we just assume it's always going to be this hard and this is too hard. And we miss, we were probably right at that place where you were going to have a nice, handy little pattern in place that would have made it so much easier. Years ago, many years ago, with a friend of mine and we decided to start working out, really getting in better shape. And we went to the gym every day at 6 a.m. And we did this for a long time. And one day I woke up and it was the middle of, it was like, we went at 6 a.m. So it was really dark and it was the middle of winter. It was freezing cold. And I opened my eyes and I'm thinking, I am not going. And I get out of bed and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not going to the gym. I am not going. I get dressed. I'm still thinking, I'm not going. I drive to the gym and meet my friend there. And I am on that treadmill thinking, oh my gosh, I really was resistant to going, and yet the habit carried me through. The habit was so strong that I just kept going once I got myself out of bed. So that's the power of habits. So my suggestion to you is to think about what is one thing you can do that will help you advance, would be a lead measure, a lead action that would influence or impact your goal, you're achieving one of your goals. So come up with that. And then my other suggestion is that you, if possible, so it'll depend on what it is, but if possible, try to connect it to some other routine that you already have. because the way habits work, they need that cue. So you want to know whatever your trigger is going to be for the habit to happen. When this happens, if this, then this. So when this happens, I will do this. So it's nice, often if you do something in the morning, it's right after I brush my teeth, because I sure do that every day. I will then I will go sit and meditate for 10 minutes. Or after I have my tea, so just look at your day and look at where there are already installed habits and add the new habit if you can right there. That will give it a little bit more strength. You'll be sort of taking advantage of that routine that's already scripted, if that makes sense. So, so that's like the cue part. And then measure it, monitor it, watch it. So you can do this as simply as take a chart and just check off that you did it each day. And I'm going to tell you why this is important in a second. So you can have a chart. I have a chart that I will put a link in. I'll figure out how to do that. I'll put a link in that you can use if you need a chart. You can make your own. Also, there's lots of habit trackers out there. One thing about a handwritten chart is it's very visual, so it also becomes another cue for your habit. Now, it seems elementary to just check it off every day. Au contraire, it's not. So here's the deal. When you check it off every day, us humans remember, impact, progress. And when you start seeing, let me show you, isn't this thrilling? All those check marks in a row, you start feeling the reward of your effort. So it's important to monitor it. And remember, instead of monitoring the result, you're monitoring the action. That's where you have power. And as you know, productivity for me is about being in the power seat. What can I do? So measure the action. Anyhow, that's today's little tips on habit formation. If you have questions, this is a topic I love, please reach out to me, either message me or put something in the comments. And to that end, I would like to acknowledge that recently I've heard from a bunch of you that you've been watching here, which I can't even get over. It's so awesome. I didn't know. Is anyone listening? So I'm really happy that you're watching, if you are watching. And I was thrilled. A person reached out to me today and said that they had watched the video on ending strong, finishing strong, as a way to sort of catapult you into 2020. And she did that. She did a little assessment on her year. She even sent it to me, and she was so excited because she had already started to see results. So again, she's starting just ahead of the game in 2020. And we want to do that for 2020. We want to do that starting now. So I'm really excited. The Power Start program that I've been talking up is starting next week. And if you are at all interested in, I just want to look at something I wanted to tell you about. If you're at all interested in joining us, I want to make it clear that this is not about abstract information about productivity or goal achievement that you listen to and take notes and say that isn't that interesting, because no one has time for that. No one has time just to take in information. This course is really, or this program, it's really not a course, is more like a lab. It's taking your content, which is your goals, and applying some of these science-backed tools sort of step by step through the process. And each week you're just kind of applying it to what you already are doing, hopefully. So it shouldn't be really adding a lot. There is a 15 to 30 minute video each week, and it builds. It's progressive over time. And it's online, and you can watch the video whenever is convenient for you. There's an app for that and all of that. So check it out. I hope you will. I also am making myself available to anyone for individual coaching during this time. And I'm just saying that is a bargain. And I'm really happy to do it because I'm invested in you getting the results. So what we know about behavior change and goal achievement, behavior change takes, or let me put it this way. Why would you do something like this? Or why would you ever have a coach, for example? It's for accountability and expertise. And when I say accountability, and that is what makes a difference for behavior change. And when I'm talking about accountability, I'm not talking about, me knocking on your door, have you done this? I'm talking about when you invest in something, when you're sort of showing up to do something, committing, sort of what they call pre-commitment. When you're committing to do something, you have a different level of accountability. You just show up that way. So it has sort of this magical effect. And I'm here to be a presence as well if you need that and if you'd like that. So all that said, we're starting up soon. I'll put a link in the comments. Would really love to have you join us. It's always a fun group of goal getters, and you can do it very quietly to yourself, or you can join in any conversation and get support from others if that's your thing. So it's really pretty flexible that way. So that's it for today. I hope you have a fantastic Tuesday, a wonderful rest of this week, and I'll see you on Thursday.